My beloved child. Your soulmate thought it would be an ordinary conversation, the kind that disappears from memory almost as quickly as it begins. But then the person standing across from them mentioned your name. Everything changed. This wasn't a stranger guessing about you. This was someone from your past, someone who remembered a version of you your soulmate had never seen. At first, your soulmate listened casually. Then came one sentence that made them stop completely. Their expression shifted. They asked, "Wait, are we talking about the same person?" And the answer they received only made the mystery deeper. Because apparently, there was something you once did when nobody expected anything from you, something you never felt the need to mention. Don't skip. The most surprising part wasn't what this person remembered. It was why they had never forgotten it. The person from your past began describing a time when things around you weren't as simple as they may appear today. They remembered how you carried yourself when nobody was watching, how you handled a difficult moment without demanding recognition, and how you quietly helped someone when walking away would have been easier. Your soulmate had heard stories about your kindness before, but this felt different because the details were too specific to dismiss. Then the person said something unexpected. You probably know the person they are now. But you should have seen who they were when there was nothing to gain. Your soulmate went silent. Suddenly, little things about you started making sense. The way you sometimes protect your feelings, the way you notice details others miss, and the way you rarely explain everything you've been through. Stay till the end, because this conversation was about to reveal something even you may not realize people remember about you. But then your soulmate asked the question that changed the entire direction of the conversation. Why are you telling me this now? For a moment, the person from your past hesitated. They looked almost surprised that your soulmate didn't already know. Then they explained that years ago, you had made a choice that quietly affected more people than you ever realized. You never announced it. You never waited for appreciation. In fact, you may have assumed everyone eventually forgot. They didn't. And when your soulmate finally heard what happened afterward, they couldn't immediately respond. Something huge is waiting for you, because this wasn't simply a flattering story from your past. It revealed a side of your character that made your soulmate reconsider something important they had recently been uncertain about. And just before the conversation ended, the person leaned closer and added one final detail, something about you that your soulmate absolutely was not prepared to hear. What came next was so unexpected that your soulmate didn't interrupt. The person from your past explained that the choice you made years ago wasn't impressive because it was dramatic, it mattered because you made it quietly, at a moment when doing the easier thing would have benefited you. You gave someone else an opportunity, protected someone from embarrassment, and stepped away without making yourself the center of the story. And here was the detail your soulmate never knew, that person remembered. Others remembered too. Your name had been mentioned more than once over the years, always connected to the same thought. You were someone who showed your real character when there was no audience. Your soulmate stared at them, processing every word. But then came a question neither of them expected. Do you know why they never told you any of this? The answer landed differently. The person said you had never seemed interested in being admired for what happened. You simply moved forward. Suddenly, your soulmate began thinking about every moment when you could have explained yourself but chose silence instead. Every time they wondered why you didn't defend your character more loudly. Every time your quietness had been misunderstood as distance. Now another possibility was staring them directly in the face. Perhaps you weren't hiding emptiness at all. Perhaps there were entire chapters behind your silence that you simply refused to use for attention. Don't skip, because your soulmate then asked about one particular chapter, and the reaction they received changed the atmosphere instantly. The person from your past stopped talking, looked directly at them, and said, "That story is different. If I tell you that one, you'll understand why this person means more than you realize." Your soulmate wanted the truth, so the conversation continued. But instead of immediately revealing everything, the person asked them something first. Has there ever been a moment when they suddenly pulled away, even though you could tell they still cared? Your soulmate's face changed. There had been. More than once. And suddenly this conversation wasn't only about your past anymore, it was explaining something happening between the two of you right now. The person knew exactly why you sometimes became guarded when emotions grew deeper. It wasn't the reason your soulmate had assumed, and hearing that alone left them questioning everything they thought they understood. Stay till the end, because the next revelation connected an old decision from your past to the way you respond to your soulmate today. And when the person finally began explaining what happened all those years ago, your soulmate realized there was one question they desperately needed to ask you personally. The next few words completely changed how your soulmate understood your silence. The person from your past explained that there had been a time when you trusted people deeply, showed up without hesitation, and believed your intentions would speak for themselves. But something happened that taught you an unforgettable lesson. Even good intentions can be misunderstood when people only see part of the story. Instead of becoming cold, you became careful. You learned to observe before speaking, to protect meaningful things instead of displaying them, and to let actions reveal what explanations sometimes couldn't. Your soulmate immediately recognized that pattern. They had seen it in you. But until this conversation, they had interpreted it differently. Suddenly, moments that once seemed confusing began fitting together. And then the person revealed something even more surprising. You had apparently mentioned the kind of person you hoped to meet someday, long before your soulmate entered your life. That detail caught your soulmate completely off guard. "What did they say?" they asked immediately. The person smiled, but didn't answer right away. Instead, they explained that you never described appearances, status, or anything superficial. You talked about how you wanted to feel around the right person. Understood without constantly explaining yourself. Respected without having to prove your worth. Comfortable enough to be quiet without that silence being mistaken for rejection. Your soulmate stopped moving. Those words sounded strangely familiar because they described the exact connection they had slowly been building with you. Something huge is waiting for you, because the person from your past then added, "That's why I recognized what this was the moment you started talking about them." Your soulmate stared back, confused. Recognized what? And how could someone who barely knew your current relationship see something your soulmate was still struggling to understand? Then came the clue that made everything feel suddenly personal. The person explained that while your life had changed over the years, one thing apparently hadn't. Whenever someone truly mattered to you, you became more thoughtful, not less interested. You noticed tiny details. You remembered ordinary conversations. You worried about saying the wrong thing because the connection meant something. Don't skip. Your soulmate immediately remembered several moments when you had done exactly that with them, moments they had previously dismissed as coincidence. Now those memories carried a completely different meaning. But the conversation still wasn't finished. Before leaving, the person from your past told your soulmate there was one particular sign they should watch for. The same thing you had done years ago whenever someone became genuinely important to you. And when they described that sign, your soulmate realized you had already done it with them. That realization stayed with your soulmate because the sign was almost impossibly subtle. The person from your past explained that when someone truly mattered to you, you didn't suddenly become louder or more obvious. You became attentive. You remembered the smallest details they casually mentioned, then quietly acted on them later without expecting recognition. Your soulmate instantly remembered conversations they thought you had forgotten, an ordinary preference they mentioned once, a small concern you noticed before anyone else, a sentence they barely remembered saying that you somehow carried with you. Suddenly, those moments no longer looked accidental. They formed a pattern. And the person from your past confirmed it with one simple observation: when they remember the little things, that person has become important. Your soulmate had no response. But there was still one detail that didn't make sense. Why had you become more distant precisely when the connection seemed to be getting stronger? The answer surprised them even more. According to this person, you had always been careful with connections that mattered most because you never wanted to make promises emotionally before you were ready to stand behind them completely. You didn't pull back because nothing was there. Sometimes you slowed down because something meaningful was developing and you wanted to understand it before acting impulsively. Stay till the end, because your soulmate immediately remembered one particular moment between you. The exact moment when your energy seemed to change. They had assumed they said something wrong. They had even wondered whether your feelings had disappeared. But now they were considering another possibility entirely. Maybe that moment wasn't when you stopped caring. Maybe it was when you realized you cared more than you expected. And then the person from your past asked a question that made your soulmate's expression change. Did they ever say something to you and then quickly change the subject? Your soulmate knew exactly which conversation they meant, even though this person couldn't possibly have known the details. There had been a moment when you almost revealed something personal, something about how safe or understood you felt around them, before suddenly redirecting the conversation. At the time, your soulmate barely noticed. Now they remembered every second of it. Don't skip, because that memory became the missing piece connecting your past to the present. Your soulmate realized that what they had mistaken for uncertainty might have been vulnerability carefully hidden behind ordinary words. But the biggest revelation was still coming. Just before the conversation ended, the person from your past gave your soulmate one final piece of advice: if you really want to know what they feel, don't ask about the obvious moments. Ask them about the day everything changed. Your soulmate froze, because they already knew exactly which day that was. That day had never seemed extraordinary from the outside, yet your soulmate remembered it with startling clarity. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no grand confession, no perfect cinematic moment. It was something much smaller, a conversation where you listened differently, stayed a little longer, and reveal just enough of yourself to make the connection feel suddenly real. Your soulmate remembered the exact look on your face when they told you something personal. They remembered how you paused before answering, as though your response mattered more than usual. And now, after everything this person from your past had revealed, they understood why. That may have been the moment you stopped seeing them as simply another person passing through your life. But there was another detail hidden inside that memory. Something your soulmate had completely overlooked until now. The person from your past had mentioned that whenever someone became deeply important to you, you asked one particular kind of question. Not about their achievements. Not about what they could offer you. You wanted to know what made them feel understood, what they hoped their future would feel like, and what they rarely told other people. Your soulmate suddenly remembered you asking something almost identical on that unforgettable day. At the time, they answered without thinking much about it. Now the question felt completely different. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate began realizing that while they had been searching for obvious proof of what you felt, your strongest signals had been hidden inside ordinary conversations. You weren't trying to impress them. You were trying to understand them. And according to the person from your past, that distinction meant everything. But then your soulmate noticed something that sent the conversation in an entirely new direction. If this person understood your patterns so clearly, there had to be a reason. How do you know all of this about them? Your soulmate finally asked. For the first time, the person from your past didn't answer immediately. Their expression changed, and the silence suddenly felt heavier than anything they had already revealed. Don't skip. Your soulmate expected another old memory, perhaps a simple explanation about how long they had known you. Instead, the person said there was something you once told them privately, something about the future and the kind of connection you would never walk away from easily. They had kept those words to themselves for years. But after meeting your soulmate, they believed those words finally made sense. Then they revealed the first sentence of what you had said, and your soulmate immediately asked them to continue. The sentence was simple, but it carried more weight than your soulmate expected. You had once said that if you ever found someone who made honesty feel easier than pretending, you would know that connection deserved your full attention. The person from your past explained that you weren't searching for perfection. You were searching for something genuine, someone around whom you wouldn't need to perform, exaggerate, or constantly prove yourself. Your soulmate immediately remembered moments when you had shown them parts of yourself that weren't polished or carefully prepared. Small uncertainties. Unfinished thoughts. Quiet hopes you rarely discussed. They had assumed those moments were ordinary. Now they realized you may have been offering something far more meaningful: trust. Stay till the end, because the person from your past wasn't finished. There was a second half to what you had said years ago, and that was the part that left your soulmate completely still. You had apparently added that recognizing the right connection wouldn't necessarily make you rush toward it. It might actually make you more careful, because the things you value most are the things you refuse to treat casually. Suddenly, your soulmate understood the contradiction that had confused them for so long. Your warmth followed by hesitation. Your openness followed by quiet reflection. Your ability to remember everything while sometimes saying very little. Perhaps those moments weren't separate signals at all. Perhaps they were pieces of the same pattern. Don't skip. Your soulmate then asked whether you had ever behaved this way before, and the answer surprised them. The person from your past said, "Not exactly like this." That changed everything. If your soulmate wasn't simply witnessing an old pattern repeating itself, then something about this connection was creating a response even the person who knew your past hadn't seen before. That was when your soulmate stopped asking about who you used to be and started asking what they should understand about who you are now. The person from your past answered carefully. They said your experiences had made you more selective with your trust, but not less capable of giving it. And then they offered one final observation: if they've allowed you to see the side of them that doesn't have everything figured out, pay attention. They don't show that side to everyone. Your soulmate instantly thought of one recent conversation, a moment when you admitted something uncertain instead of pretending you had all the answers. They had almost forgotten it. Now it became impossible to ignore. Something huge is waiting for you, because after leaving that conversation, your soulmate made a quiet decision. They weren't going to confront you with everything they had learned. Instead, they planned to ask you one carefully chosen question. And your answer could finally reveal what neither of you had been brave enough to say directly. The question your soulmate chose wasn't complicated, but they knew your answer could change everything. When did you first realize I mattered to you differently? They didn't want to mention the person from your past. They didn't want to influence your response or make you feel as though you were being tested. They wanted the truth in your own words. And while imagining that conversation, one memory kept returning: the same ordinary day the person from your past had indirectly pointed toward. Your soulmate suddenly remembered something else from that moment. After they shared something deeply meaningful, you didn't immediately respond with advice. You simply listened. Then you remembered that detail weeks later. That was when your soulmate understood the difference between someone hearing them and someone genuinely paying attention. But another question surfaced immediately. If that day changed something inside you, what exactly had you realized? Your soulmate began replaying everything that happened afterward. The conversations became slightly deeper. Your questions became more thoughtful. You started noticing changes in their mood before they explained them. Yet whenever the connection moved close to becoming undeniable, you seemed to slow down. Before meeting this person from your past, your soulmate had interpreted that hesitation as uncertainty about them. Now they wondered whether you were actually uncertain about what to do with feelings that had become unexpectedly meaningful. Stay till the end, because there was one detail the person from your past mentioned that your soulmate couldn't forget. When something truly matters to you, you don't make quick promises, you look for consistency. Suddenly, your soulmate realized you hadn't only been revealing yourself. You had also been quietly watching whether their words and actions matched over time. And that realization shifted something inside them. Instead of feeling judged, your soulmate finally understood why the smallest moments between you had carried so much weight. Every kept promise. Every honest conversation. Every time they stayed consistent when there was nothing to gain. Those moments may have been answering questions you never asked aloud. Don't skip, because your soulmate then remembered the last thing the person from your past said before walking away: there's one thing they'll never fake. Watch what happens when they think you're about to leave their life. At first, your soulmate didn't understand. Then they remembered a recent moment when circumstances made it seem as though the two of you might naturally drift apart. Your reaction that day had been subtle, but unmistakable.